During this video, we're going to take a look at 3 common issues you can have while shooting your own artwork, whether it be for a composite or for a portfolio. If you have a keystone effect, hotspots, or you need to straighten parts of your images, we'll go through a quick and easy way in Photopea to remedy some of those situations. So let's talk about 3 common issues that we can have while photographing works, whether it be for digital portfolios or if you're going to use sketches to import into an application like Photopea to do a composite. So the first issue that we run into a lot is this concept of having a keystoned image. By keystoned, what I mean is the image wasn't taken with the device that shot it being flat. And you can see that this foreground, or this area closest to us, is much wider than the area up top, and it has this effect that everything isn't perfectly straight, and we can make some adjustments to that in Photoshop or Photopea, and we'll take a look at that here in a second. Another one is hotspots. So this photograph was taken, and the image has lamination on it. So there was a really bright light next to where I was shooting, and I ended up with this quote-unquote hotspot. The area is basically white. So with this drawing, we can probably salvage this to use as another piece of artwork, but something like this you definitely want to reshoot, especially if it was an image that needed to remain in color. So again, with hotspots, there's not a whole lot you can do, but I'll go through a couple of quick concepts to hopefully salvage some of the works if you run into that and that's all you have. The other issue that you can run into is things not being straight within the picture plane. So this was a matted pen and ink drawing, and you can see that it was shot crooked, and we'll just go through really quickly how to make that adjustment as well. So I'll use Photopea for this example, but you can use Photoshop as well, or other image editing tools like Preview, so on and so forth. The concepts that I'm going to go over with Photopea are the exact same in Photoshop, so you can do either. So to import your images, you go to File, Open, and then select them from wherever you have them housed. Or if you're working on a Mac or a PC, you can just drag and drop your images into Photopea. Okay, so this issue that we have with this keystoned photograph, this is a pretty simple thing to fix. All you have to do is basically select the area that we want to adjust and make a quick adjustment with it. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to use the rectangle select tool or the marquee tool, and I'll just drag across the portion of this photograph that has the image in it that I want to use. And as I mentioned, you can see that the bottom of this picture plane or this selection is a lot wider than what we have at the top. So with that selected, I like to go to Edit Copy and Edit Paste, or you can use shortcuts obviously that are listed there, and I'm going to work with just this little area. So with that layer and this portion of that image selected, I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform. In this case, I'll use Perspective. And what Perspective does is it allows you to take these handles on this bounding box and adjust your image. So all I have to do is basically grab one of the corners, one of the handles up top, and drag it out. And I can either eyeball this to try to get the sides of my picture plane parallel to the sides of my viewport. Same way with the top and the bottom. I want those to be pretty much equidistant, so they're the same size. And I can grab these handles on the top or the bottom too and stretch this back into close to what it was with the actual image that I shot as far as proportion goes. So again, I'm just eyeballing this. Another option would be to hold Shift on your keyboard and drag things out to keep the constraints the same, or you can actually use the viewport or the area that you're working with and try to size up that bottom portion to it and then stretch out the top to try to match. And I'll just go ahead and do that as an example here. And this will get you a little bit closer to a non-keystoned image. So that actually flattened out pretty nicely, and I can drag this up a bit to stretch the form out so it's a little bit closer to what the drawing looked like. Now, one issue that we can have with this, since I stretched that out, I'll go ahead and click this check to keep that in place and use my zoom tool to kind of zoom out. One issue that we can have is now that layer is larger than the area that I'm working with. So I can go up and grab my marquee tool, drag across the viewport, the area that I'm working with, and go to image and crop. And now I have this layer. Things are less keystoned, and I can use this for a composite, or again, if you shot one of your works and you need it to be in a specific format, that will help take care of that. And with all these issues that you can have, it's best to reshoot, but that's one solution to taking care of that keystone. Let's pull in another example, that hotspot. And since I'm working with a drawing here, I'm just going to go ahead and drag across the area that I want to work with here. So with that layer selected, hotspot selected, I need to go up to layer and I need to rasterize that so it becomes essentially a bunch of pixels and not a shape. And let me take the marquee tool and focus in on this area. So I'll go ahead and copy and paste that again. Let's say I just want to work with that portion of the image. I can go up to image adjustments and go down to black and white. So I'm going to turn this black and white so that I'm not working with any color at all. And now I'm isolating just the black for the ink, and then essentially the white would be the background. And I can go in and I can burn this. So I'm going to use my burn tool, and I'm going to select either shadows or midtones, and you can experiment with that a little bit. The exposure is on 50% right now. You can turn that up or down so that it will burn faster or slower, and you can change the size of your brush too. If you want to work more detailed, you can do that. But the concept here is, with this burn tool, it's going to take those dark areas and it's essentially going to make them darker. So I can start to brush across the areas that I want to be dark, and I can be kind of sloppy with this because it's not really burning any of those white areas at all. It's just burning these shadows. So I can bring some of that line work back. And if I wanted to use that background, I could always select that and go in and burn some of those areas. So let me zoom in a little bit just to show you how this works. And again, your best option is to reshoot something like this, but if you absolutely maybe don't have the image anymore and there's a hotspot in here, this is just basically a way to at least work with it. So we'll switch from the shadows over to the highlights, and I can go into the background and I can darken some of these areas down. Now that went really, really dark, so I could turn the exposure down to just like a couple of percent, and I can start to kind of feather out those issues, or those dark areas. And this actually would work with this tolerance pretty well to darken it down to match my background a bit. And then I could use that for whatever it is I'm working with. So hotspots, again, if it's a color image and you need those colors, that's difficult to work with, but you can try that dodge and burn and see if it'll work for you. The last thing is straightening images. So I'm going to pull this in just to show you. So here's an image that was shot, and you notice it's crooked. The top of it is not parallel to my viewport or my picture plane. We can adjust that in a number of different ways. And again, if you drag images in, they become a smart object. So let me place this. And you have to rasterize those. So again, you go to Layer and Rasterize. And just for the sake of demonstration, let's talk about a couple of tools that we can use to straighten things. So I'm going to go up here with this layer and go to Edit, Transform, and instead of using perspective this time, I'm just going to grab Rotate. And if your image allows you to, you can kind of just eyeball things up. So just moving that corner a little bit, I've leveled out the top and the bottom and the sides of the picture plane, and that works pretty well. You may need to resize things too if you're fitting it into a specific format. Obviously this is a landscape format and it's pasted into a portrait background. but that rotate tool works pretty well. So in order to apply that, I can either click this check mark here for confirmation, or I can just hit enter on my keyboard. Then I can go in with my marquee tool and I can go ahead and crop things down by selecting the area that I want, and then go to image and crop, or there is a crop tool right here in Photo P and Photoshop, and they work really well, obviously. So you can do either to place it. So just a couple of quick solutions to those common issues that you have. Again, if you're using like a background like this for a composition where we're using actual other images to composite it, you'll need to probably do that at some point.